I'm Rob Lucuria, and I'm joined today by costume designer Lucinda Wright, whose work on The Witcher helped define the show's lived-in, fight-ready fantasy. Lucinda, you said that you're there to tell the story and the script guides you. So on a show this big, what does that actually mean in practice? In other words, what's the first thing you're interrogating? Emotion, function, silhouette, color, something else entirely, or all of the above?
Well, the first thing I interrogate is Lauren, the scriptwriter and showrunner, and her and myself. We sit down and I've gone through all the scripts and I will point out the bits that I think, do you really want to see that? Can I alter that? Can I do this? And I have a meeting with her with a portfolio for all the episodes, and I do all my images and drawings, and I say, this is where it's going to go. And most episodes will have a color code in it, so there's a kind of story progressing, and especially in season 4 moving up to baptism of fire, it builds and builds. You're waiting for that big fight on the bridge, the battle. So I will go through, and I'm very lucky that Lauren gives me pretty much free range to have my ideas, and but I do get a lot of inspiration from Lauren and the scripts, because they are the main, they are the center of the whole program. So you're there, as I say, to illustrate it and make sure the viewer, I always look at it like I'm watching it. What would I like to see? What monsters, what blood and guts, because that's the exciting bit, and also have a bit of humor, and that's how I approach it.
Right, that's the Bible, and you're bringing it to life.
Yeah.
So season 4, though, new chapter, and this audience of this show very hyper attuned to visual continuity. So how did you approach continuing the show's established identity while giving us something that feels fresh for this particular era?
Well, I think the main thing was to have Liam as Geralt, and having worked with Henry, who was Geralt, Geralt, that's an established character. So I think it was important in the costume to carry on the elements of that look, that silhouette. Whereas then we had the belt on Henry would be high under his armour. With Liam, I felt like he was more like a kind of, I remember the first time I saw Liam walk down the corridor, and I thought, that is it. He's silent, he's like a panther, and he can kill. He looks very, very kind of sweet and innocent, and that's what I wanted, and that's why I incorporated an animal print in the leather and the jacket. He's kind of got this stealth kind of movement and those long legs. And I remember when I first met him, I said, those legs. And we both stood there and both went bright red. And I went, oh, I'm trying to talk about costume. It was hilarious. But it was bringing the elements of the same trousers, the fighting trousers, the boots, the belt, keeping the silver studded that was always a signature of the Geralt armour, but giving him more of a freer, contemporary look, I would say. So that was the main thing for season 4, was getting Liam as Geralt, which I thought he was brilliant as. And then there were loads of new characters, like Lawrence as Regis, as the vampire, which I wanted to have as much colour in there, and like his cape had blood red lining. I was kind of bringing that vampire bit in that you would notice. And like his boots were made of blood red leather, but I wanted him to be, because he's meant to be a barber surgeon, who their clothes were incredibly expensive in that time, and they would leave their clothes in a will to their next of kin. So I wanted him to have quality, and then bringing in new armies like the White Army and the Nilfgaard SAS troopers, as I called them, in the black. So there were lots of new characters, and I thought it was really exciting to read it and build up to that last episode, as I said.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 comments before I move on. And number 1, Liam, good Aussie guy. I think he really adds so much to the show. I love it. And
Yeah,
also,
he's great.
I'm glad you brought up the vampire costume because honestly, when the show finally ends, someone's got to take those boots. Those boots are killer. How good are those boots? I love them. Um, okay, so you've spoken about grounding fantasy in realism,
Yeah.
especially designing costumes that performers can genuinely fight and move in. That's so critical to this show. What does that look like in practice in The Witcher, though? How do you test whether something really works?
I hang around with the stunt department a lot, and I always have done. I adore stunts. I think that's what makes The Witcher, you know, when they're on those pullbacks and they slam those Nilfgaard in that armor against the wall. When Yennefer goes in, that to me is so exciting. So I will sometimes go and see the previs of the stunt, and then I will design the costume because I want movement. And I did that for season 3 with Villefors and Geralt. I wanted Villy to rotate round like a whirling dervish. And Mahesh didn't quite get it in the fitting room. He said, "Why have I got so much fabric? Why have I got so many layers?" And I said, "Well, when we go to the beach, you'll see." So when he did that fight and he spun and spun, I just think it gives such a movement to the camera. So there's a lot of when I meet the actor, we will talk about it. I will always put fabric on them. Drawings are fine, but it doesn't mean anything. With an actor, it's better to put something on so they can
Mm,
feel the weight of it and see what they think. So there's a lot of once you've got it, it's fine, you know. And then when they go to stunt rehearsal, I will quite often make them a double so they can go and rehearse in it. So there's a lot of work into it, and it might just be one signature outfit, like with Lawrence and his cape. And
mm,
he loved his cape, and he was like, "Oh, I've got a fight coming up," and I'd say, "Look, let's just work on it." And it's about making the actor feel secure, and you can tell if an actor's happy. You can tell when you're by that camera, which I'm by the camera every day. If you can see that look in their eye of "I ain't enjoying this," you shouldn't even be, that costume shouldn't be on their back. That should have been worked out ages ago in the fitting room. So I very much work closely with them and see what the shots are, basically.
yeah. You've unlocked something in my head because the whirling dervish is such a great example. It really does actually connects quite a lot with that particular costume. You know what though? I'm curious because actors tell me all the time about how important costume is to them and to getting into character. What is the best compliment that you can get from an actor in a fitting?
I think when I tell you what it is, you're talking to them and they usually are quite nervous. It's like I sometimes say to them, "You look like you're going to the dentist. You're meant to enjoy this."
Yeah.
And it's when you start, you do your first fitting and ideas, and then you've made it, and they put it on, and they're standing there, and then they start talking to you about something completely different, and they've forgotten they're in costume, and they're walking around, and they start putting their hands in their pockets, and that's when you realise they're comfortable, and you have to say, "Oh, were you happy with it?" And they go, "Oh yeah, yeah, of course, yeah, yeah, yeah." And they start talking about something that was on the telly the night before, and you're like, "I spent months and weeks sweating over this, and now you're
Yeah.
happy." So it's when they don't realise, and when I put Liam into his jacket and the whole look, and his face was just so sweet. He was just like he didn't say much. He was just like just doing that, as you know, that slow nod, that
That's
kind of, and then the
stoic.
look
Yeah.
around. And then bless him, he did say, "This should be in a museum. This is beautiful." He did say that,
Wow.
and I was like, "Wow, thanks." And
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
All that hard work does pay off. Let's get nerdy about the armor. I'm really curious to know what your answer is to this. What's your framework for distinguishing factions so they feel readable at a glance, especially in battle scenes?
Well, it was important bringing in the white armor, which was the silver armor. In this, for me, it was really important about silhouette because quite a lot of the fights were meant to be at night, but that changed to daylight. And also in the bridge, you didn't know how dark it was going to be. So that's why with them, their helmets were almost like a fin going up. It was all to do with the shape. Whereas in the Nilfgaard around, I wanted the white. I wanted you to better know who they were, even if they were covered in loads of mud. And also the White Army is very smooth, and whereas in the Nilfgaard is spiky, their costume, their armour. So it was all about shape, colour, and basically one's dark and one's light. I always think it's not bad making something very obvious, because a minute you see that screen, you've got to know who's fighting who. So that's why they had that look, the White Army, and then the Nilfgaard all in black, like they called them ninja, but I called them the SAS, the ones who were like just it was quite interesting when we dressed all the stuntmen, all 60 of them, in that. It was the hottest day of the year, and they had all their stuff on. And I ran up and said, for God's sake, take some stuff off camera. And the word came back was the stunties love it so much they don't want to take it off, which I thought was so lovely, because the stuntmen are stuntmen, and they were just lying on the grass with everything on. And just look at it. I took some great photos, and that's the biggest compliment, when they don't want to take it off.
For sure, absolutely. Actually, on a series at this scale, costumes go through so much enormous wear, which means building multiple versions of the same look. So how do you plan for volume and durability without losing continuity, especially when the audience, like this audience, is so attuned to detail?
Well, the simple answer to that is I have a brilliant team with me, and my God, they're great. It's not a huge team really on something like this, and I only have one ACD costume assistant, Rosie. It's just her and me for the design group, and then we do have a buyer, and we have on-set people, but I do the budget as well, so I know exactly where I'm going to put the money. So it's like with Liam's outfits, there were 8 jackets. So for stages of, a stunt one, a water one, I literally will sit down and I will plot how many I'm going to have before I start. And it's like, you want the kind of money shots, as I call it, like no one would decide on the armies. We had 4 armies, and it went back and forth how many we're going to have, how many stunt. And I said, in the end, look, I'm doing this amount, I'm doing that, I'm going big. And they were like, wow. And I went, yeah, I'm going big, I'm talking 500. Because the thing I love about The Witcher, every single person in those fights was in there. It wasn't CGI. I remember when season 2 we did the aftermath of Battle of Sodden, and it was all real people without limbs, and it was a drone shot, and someone said, oh, your CGI is really good. I went, no, we had every single person, and I went around and checked them. It's like, that's what I love about The Witch. If they're going to do a fight, they do it well. And I literally will just plot it, and you've also got to always factor in stuff getting broken, damaged. It's just organisation and having a fantastic team with you who works so hard. Breakdown is one of the most important things to me. And I also like using really lovely fabrics and knowing that's going to get blood on it, because the audience think surely not. And I just love breaking everything down for that reason, as you say, to make it look real, because I do think some fantasy in the past, just like, no, you've got to believe it.
You got to believe
it. Yeah.
It's like just like the sets. Like if it's too proppy, it just takes you out of it. And actually, let's follow up on that. That's a really interesting point that you raised, Lucinda, because I love how the clothing is really weathered, reworked, repaired. So what's your process for building that kind of history and texture into garments without turning it into like some heavy-handed distressing exercise?
Yeah, well, I have a good breakdown team, and what normally would happen is we'd work on, say, with the White Army, we of course shot the end first, so they've been through the battle, and then I'd work with them, and we'd get to a point where I'd say, this is the level I want it at on one thing, and then they literally will just duplicate that again and again. And also, when you go filming, we'd all stand there, and I'd just be like, yeah, more blood, and you don't know what the weather's going to be like, what the mud. And it's just sometimes less is more, because as you say, it can look a bit like, bit of a comedy moment. So you have to kind of gauge, and quite often when you're filming, as you know, you would do it out of sync. You would do the end first, the middle, the battle, and then the beginning. So that's where, when you have all the doubles and everything, you say, right, that's the beginning of the fight and that's at the end. But I do think you have to kind of go with the flow. You have to be able to have a mindset of like, well, yeah, that's trashed. You can't be precious. Yeah, you just have to think, yeah, that's going to work.
Yeah. You know, costume sits at the crossroads of like movement and visual effects and production design, how things read on camera. So, what kind of cross department conversations come up most often, and how do you work through them in a way that protects both the character and the story?
Well, I will always work very closely with Andrew, the set designer, because you want to know what you want to make it look like. A character like Emir lives in his palace. You want to make it look like that person is part of that set and it's believable. So I work closely with them and Deb Makeup, and very often with the DOP. I work really closely. That, how are you going to shoot that? How are you going to light it? They always thought that was a bit odd when I joined in season 2, because the first person I said I wanted to meet was the DOP, and they were like, why? And I was like, because I need to know how much you're going to light it. And quite often in my costumes, I will always have a bit of sparkle, a bit of glitter, because I like the Wraith. Even though she was so scary as hell, I still wanted her to have that little bit of sparkle. And she may look ugly as sin, but when she's looking at Geralt, you know, that's that ugly chops of hers, she's still got a sparkly corset that is kind of hanging on her.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
it's quite often I will do that because the lighting can be quite dark on The Witcher. So fabrics are really important. And I think it's just kind of working as a team with people, listening. You must always listen to people and be willing to change your mind. And also, when I first joined The Witcher, I just spoke to all the actors and said, like Yennefer and Ciri, especially Freya, worked really closely with Freya. Tell me, where do you think this is going to go? Because her new look in season 4 of the lime leather jacket, and she's gradually evolving to that Witcher, and it's a look we worked on since 2, that I wanted her to get more refined. She's got her scabbard now. She has that fight with Leo Bernhardt, one of my favourites. And yeah, it was interesting. I'm just rambling. It's interesting talking to Shelter about the killer, because with that, I wanted to have no armour, all soft fabrics, reveal as much flesh as possible to illustrate he's such a superb killer and so arrogant, he doesn't need protection. He shows his chest and he shows his arms. He knows no one can kill him because he's got that killer instinct, and that's why he's got soft fabrics. And again, his was about movement. That's why him against a Witcher is such, you know, who's got leather and studding. That's why Leo B is just a superb killer. When I first read that character and I read it in the book, I thought, this is superb.
Yeah.
Do you think there's something wrong with me?
No, it's a great example of how costume can set the scene and define a character before a single word is spoken. Production design does the same thing, as does cinematography, but it's a really important part of your work. Actually, I want to go back in time a little, Lucinda, because when you took over in season 2, take us back to how you were feeling about coming onto an established show, and also how you follow the blueprints from season 1, but you also want to put your own mark, your own fingerprints on the production as well.
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie. I mean, I was so excited. I can't tell you, because it's the best job in the world for a designer, because you create all those worlds. But I obviously watched season 1, and some things were established. A lot of things were, but I was really helped by the scripts, because in season 2, the Nilfgaard suddenly ramped up a notch, it became powerful. And I thought, well, these boys need a powerful armor. So that's the first thing I waded into, was to do a more gothic. They had to be a stronger force because they were in the script, you know, they were moving on. So I would talk again to all the actors because I wanted to know what their characters were about. There were a lot of them, believe me. So, and then also I changed completely Henry's armour. I had a half an hour meeting with him and he just spoke about the armour and I went, yeah, I get it now. Yeah. So I worked really closely with him, and because I wanted him to be a fighting machine. And I just felt, you know, with that physique, you can't go wrong. So it was just, and I've always loved armour, it was just trying to make it become more solid, more realistic and more dirty, but also still carrying on some traits from one, because you have to, because it's a story and you're telling that story. But yeah, it was a massive opportunity, and as you can tell, I still love it, absolutely adore it. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely can tell. So, final question, Lucinda, is this. If you could give viewers one, like, watch this cue for season 4 from a costuming perspective, what should we be paying attention to? Is there a character arc that is especially visible through wardrobe this year?
Gosh, that's a toughie. I think it's a toss-up between Liam as Geralt, Lawrence as Regis, and Sholto as Leo B, as I call him.
Yeah.
And then you got Siri. I mean, God, I mean, I don't know. Perhaps it's. I think it's those three because they are so different, and I just hope as a costume they tell the character, as you say, before you kind of see it. I hope.
Yeah.
And what would you say?
I mean, Geralt is the obvious answer. The reason why I'm asking is because, yes, it's an established show. Yes, it's season 4. On a lot of shows, by season 4, things are very established. But you had your work cut out for you. I feel like season 4 is almost like a new show in terms of its visuals, and you really nailed it. And that's what I just wanted to make that very clear. The Geralt stuff with Liam, maybe I'm biased because we're both Aussies, but I just felt like that you really nailed it there. And some of that insight you just gave us, which I didn't even realize about the animal print. Now I want to look out for it even.
Yeah. Have a look at his jacket. It is pure, and it is like, have a look at that animal print on it.
Yeah, I will.
That's him. He's a panther.
He's the panther.
Don't tell him.
No, don't tell him. Lucinda, thank you so much for your time today. Congratulations on a really strong season.
Oh, it's very sweet of you, Rob. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.